Adam Schuster, representing Illinois Policy. I want to thank you for bringing up the local conversation. First of all, I came here today prepared to talk about 4 legislative proposals focused on the state, but we actually do have a local government transparency bill that we've been in discussion with some members of this commission, as well as the Illinois Municipal League, to try to find some agreed language. And in its current form, it's really focused on transparency, so that people can find information easily about lobbying, about contract bids, and things like that from their local government. And in its current form, we're trying to find the threshold that makes sense where you would create this requirement, but it would require some governments to have a website, to post financial information on that website, and we're still in negotiations and trying to figure out the exact right list of items that would have to be posted there. But some of the things we would like to see would include lobbying contracts and contract bids over a certain amount, because I think that's how you get that groundswell of support. It's how you enable local communities to be a watchdog for their local government, is just by making sure they have that information accessible to them. And I also do want to comment briefly on the issue of shutting down the good work and experimentation being done by locals currently, in particular Chicago. There's a lot of ways you could deal with that, using language that says local governments must adopt things at least as restrictive as. So in other words, they could make more restrictive ethics code, but not less restrictive ethics code. So I think that's a worthwhile concern, but there's ways around that as well.
And just to comment all that, I'm saying let's set a floor, right? Chicago can keep theirs. DuPage, Kane County, when we set different contribution standards, went above and beyond. And we did that when I was on the county board. We were afraid that someone was going to challenge it in court. Well, who's going to challenge that in court?
So again, Adam Schuster, representing Illinois Policy. We actually have specific legislative language for each of our proposals, legal definitions. We started to draw the lines, put the meat on the bones, at least as a sort of an opening salvo for the debate and discussion you all will have. And on this issue in particular, we would sort of have a 3-step test for mandatory disclosure and recusal. The first would be that you have a financial interest. Second is that it's substantial, which points to the current ethics code in terms of setting the dollar amounts for whether it's a substantial interest. But ranges.
Is this like the 7.5% or?
It's the $1,200 in income, $5,000 in capital gains,
okay.
that type of thing. And then, so the substantial interest, and then the third is that the bill would benefit you in a way that differs from the way it would benefit the general public. And then the sort of enforcement mechanism would, to respect separation of powers, would go to the Legislative Ethics Commission itself. It would be punishable by a fine of up to $1,000 issued by the Legislative Ethics Commission. So we didn't want to go, Arizona, it's punishable by up to 18 months in prison. We didn't want to go that far, but $1,000 is a reasonable check and penalty, we think.
And could you let us know the bill number of that one, too?
Absolutely, and I do have bill numbers for the local government transparency as well. It's in the House, we have House Bill 2810, and then Senator Curran's is 1928, and some of that language is still fluid.
So, getting back to your 3-pronged test. So the first one was the disclosure piece. I'm trying to remember what you said.
The first one is simply that you have an interest.
Have an interest. And the second one would be that the interest would be reportable, on the current economic interest form. So, and I think somebody used Facebook as an example, so we'll just go back to that. So you own, you drive more than $1,200 a year worth of income out of Facebook stock, of which you're a owner. So anything that benefited Facebook that you voted on could potentially put you at risk, or because you own such a small portion, you wouldn't be considered an owner, or how does that work?
I think it would depend on the nature of the bill. If it benefited Facebook disproportionately, more than the general public or more than other companies of a similar type, then we would expect the interest to be disclosed. And
so how much? What's the here we get then to the gray area of disproportionately is how much more does it have to benefit Facebook than say Google or Instagram or whoever?
Yeah, and I think because there is a gray area, and because to a certain extent ethics are subjective, that's why we would leave it up to the Legislative Ethics Commission to make that final determination.
So would they make that determination before you voted, or would you go consult with them knowing a bill was coming along to see whether it fit in the gray area, or would you just take your vote and wait for somebody to complain?
They would make the determination on punishment. I believe currently you can check with an ethics officer for recusal. I've heard that in the past. I don't know the exact mechanism. I could get back to you on that, though.
Senator McConkey.
Thanks. Directly in regards to this, you said that the standard is what is currently listed in the Statement of Economic Interest form.
Correct. It's just a cross-site to the statute. So if that were updated, it would automatically update the standards for recusal as well.
Okay, because I'll add my voice to the concern about the vagueness of the current one. I actually, if you look at my form, there is a whole lot of stuff on there that is probably completely unnecessary to be listed there. But in the effort to ensure that there's no question in regards to, my integrity and so forth, I went way overboard, in regards to that. So, including, I think I listed index funds. I think somebody mentioned, Vanguard earlier or something. So I would want to make sure that anything is done along that line. I think we need, anything along that line would need, if that's going to be the trigger, there needs to be a clarification that's done with the Statement of Economic Interest at the same time.